Hi, thank you so much for tuning in to P2P Relates, where we talk about all things relationships. I'm Pat Renfro, and today we're going to talk about the impact of bitterness on your own life as well as those closest in your life. If this is something that you believe could be helpful, please stick around to hear the whole presentation, and also do subscribe to my channel by clicking the subscribe button. Once you click it, then a bell will appear, and if you click the bell whenever I do uploads, which is every Friday, you'll get notifications. And also give me a like. That always helps the channel. Bitterness. I want to talk about 4 aspects of bitterness that just might serve to help you understand what happens, how it gets in, and how you can get it out. That's really the bottom line, right? To always get better. Number 1 is to recognize what opened the door to the bitterness. 2, decide to close that door, hopefully as quickly as possible, with a tool. And those 2 things are forgiveness and resolution. You got to resolve it. It's not going to just go away. Number 3 is to begin the process of renewal. And finally, number 4 is to look around and see who's been impacted by your bitterness, and then love them enough to get it under control. All right, let's go right into it. When someone becomes bitter, it's only because it started with hurt. So in case you don't agree with that, I would invite you to go to Webster and just look up the word hurt and find your synonym. Maybe it wasn't hurt. Maybe you were offended or angry or outdone or felt manipulated. But the bottom line is something hurt that relationship. Trust was broken on some level. And you probably were in disbelief that that particular action was taken or that behavior was done. So that's what you have to acknowledge, is where it's coming from. And some of the feelings that you might even express or think in your heart are, they did this and there's nothing I can do about it. Or I didn't see that coming. Or like I said earlier, I trusted them. So when those feelings come up, they're basically feelings of helplessness. Helplessness, you may be a very strong and powerful person, but it's helpless in the sense that you did that to me and there's nothing I can do about it. The damage has been done. And in a lot of cases, that means the person that says the damage has been done basically is done. They don't see any recourse for repair. They're feeling like they can't ever trust you again. They're appalled at what you did, all those things. But just like undealt with hurt that we just expressed, it reminds me of moodiness. And I have a theory about moodiness. My theory is that people are only moody. Think about people you know in your life that are moody. They just all of a sudden snap for no apparent reason. And one minute they're up and the next minute they're down, and there's no apparent reason for it whatsoever. You've even asked them what's wrong, and a lot of times they might say, I don't know. Just in a bad mood. Got up on the wrong side of the bed. And the reason I have always believed that people become moody is because they don't address whatever's bugging them. No, you didn't get up on the wrong side of the bed. You got up on the same side you always get up on. But when you woke up, something was on your heart or your mind. Something was worrying you or bothering you, or you reflected back on yesterday's activities and you got angry or appalled again by something someone did, and you're kind of sort of processing it because it hit your mind, but you're not really addressing it. You're not like saying, okay, let me move into some space where I can just dedicate my thought life to thinking about what just happened there and how do I feel about it and what might I do about it, or do I need to do anything, just processing. Sometimes we need to really go within, and that may be extra hard for extroverts because we go outward. We go toward people. We don't retract away from people to get our energy. And so if we're not careful and if we're not doing enough self-care, we won't take the time to really process what's really bugging us. And sometimes we do process it and we feel like there's no solution, so then we really get into a little funk. And so that's the way hurt turns into a deeper thing, when you don't address it. What's worse is with bitterness comes a hardness of heart. You get to the place where you become numb, because numb is easier than having a fleshy heart, a heart that's pliable and impressionable and transparent. No, I'm done with that. You hurt me. You did something to me that betrayed my trust, and I'm not about to open back up to you again. And then again, I don't know if I trust too many people at all, because that happened like this and that and the other in other situations. And before you know it, because again, bitterness is the ultimate way to be offended, hurt, angry, and in unforgiveness. And so when you get to that bitterness part, that's when the heart is so hard that it's numb. It's like you can, what they say, pinch me with a fork. And when that happens, there's 4 things that you lose. Acknowledgement. I'm not mad. Nothing bothering me. In fact, I don't really care. You didn't acknowledge the fact that you're in pain and that you're really affected negatively by what they did. Forgiveness becomes very difficult. When my heart gets hard, I don't need to forgive you. You did me wrong. I have every right to be as angry as I am. I'm not going to give you that. That would be a gift. 3, you lack the ability to be vulnerable and transparent anymore. Because again, in order to be transparent and open, you have to trust. And if you don't feel like you can trust, then you won't open up. And finally, the 4th thing is opportunity for new engagements get completely squashed. I don't want to deal with anybody else because somebody else might do me like that. So if you're a regular visitor of P2P Relates, you've heard me talk about this before, but love is a decision. And anytime we need to get rid of bitterness, love has got to be in the equation somewhere. But just like love is a decision, forgiveness is a decision. This is number 2, where you decide to close the door. And then use your tools, and I'm giving you 2 tools, forgiveness and resolution, to close those doors. If you've listened to my channel before, you may have heard me talk about love is a decision. Many times people think love is an emotion, and I'm not going to argue that and say it's not, but I will say to you that in order for you to truly love someone, you have to decide to love that person. If you think about it, you don't know your baby. If you're a mother, you don't know your baby from Adam's house cat. Yeah, that body's moved around inside of you, but you really don't know who that person is, what they'll be like, or any of that. But you decide that came out of you, so you're going to love it, accept it, and help it the best way you can, unless you know something else really deep and major is going on in your life. In most normal cases, a mother just naturally embraces that child and they just all of a sudden love him. Well, if you think about it, if love had to be based on emotion, I don't know you, so how could I love you? Love is a decision in that when you decide to love someone, you decide to be good to them, to be faithful to them, to work diligently with them, to complement their life, support them in appropriate ways. And those decisions are not based on how they make you feel necessarily. Those decisions are based on you've decided that you're going to love this person. I made the big piece about love being a decision because forgiveness is also a decision. The best way to forgive someone is to decide to forgive them. If you wait until you feel like forgiving them, that may never happen. If you think about it, many times we may forgive a person who comes to us and apologizes. But what do you do when the person never comes to you? They meant to hurt you, or they didn't know they hurt you and they moved on down the road and they only have a clue. But you're stuck with the memories, the videotapes in your head about how they did you like they did you. That's the type of issue that we're really dealing with here, because that's where bitterness resides. Bitterness very seldom happens because somebody did something that offended you. They came and talked to you and you just decided you were going to have a hard heart. No, bitterness grows in layers like an onion. And the less you address it and deal with it, the greater potential for the bitterness. And bitterness just means basically that you can't get any more resentment in your heart. When you think of that person, you just recoil, or you just have this real harsh emotion and feeling and reaction, and it makes your attitude shift to align with that particular perspective. And before you know it, it spews out in other ways with other people as well. So I've laid the foundation for how you begin to close the door. And the bottom line is, one, you need to understand what forgiveness is and what it is not. Forgiveness is deciding that you're going to release that person from their offense, from what they did. Forgiveness does not mean that you're saying they didn't do anything wrong. And forgiveness also doesn't mean you go back into it. If you don't feel safe in that relationship, if you don't feel like you can return and everything can work out in a way where both people's respect is intact, you don't go back. And in some cases, you may not even ever talk to them again. But you make a decision in your heart to forgive them and to release them. And the big deal here is to understand that they, in so many cases, don't even realize what they did to you. They don't know they hurt you. So once you understand that, you're not letting them off the hook. You're not saying two things. One, it's okay what you did. And two, you could do it again if you'd like. You're not saying that in forgiveness. What you're doing is really, forgiveness is for you. That's really what I'm getting to. Forgiveness is for you, because if you don't forgive, if you hold on to what happened and how you felt about it and how resentful you are, it will hurt you again and again and again. It will spew over into other relationships. It will create an atmosphere of distrust between you and many other people as well, because you will find yourself using the venom, the resentment, the hurt, the pain of that experience in other relationships, even unknowing to yourself. So it's just so very important to just say, you know what? I decide that I forgive you. I decide that I'm going to release you, and I'm going to let bygones be bygones from that standpoint. Now, I may never open that gate again, because I might recognize that I need to protect myself, but I release you. And you know what might help you release a person? To understand that we come from so many backgrounds. We, in many cases, unfortunately, come from baggage that people may never know. And if you think about people who have done horrendous things, and then you get to hear the psychological workup on that person, you might say two things. One, that was a horrendous thing they did, but wow, now I understand how that could have happened, or how they could have started thinking like that. Look at what happened to them when they were a kid or whatever. A lot of stuff that we go through that's negative or unproductive in our lives came from childhood experiences. And so if you can think about that when you're deciding to forgive someone, it might help that they are who they are. You know, if you listen to my video from last week, I talked about very seldom are you in the middle. Very seldom is it about you. It's not about you. People do who they are. That's really the bottom line. And so if you can realize that they weren't trying to see how many ways they could hurt you, it wasn't a personal thing, it was who they are and where they were at that caused that issue, then you can release them. And you can say, in this case, I understand, and we could try this again. Or you could say, no, I'm done, but I forgive you. I release you. The second thing is resolution. You know how I talked a little earlier about moodiness and my theory about moodiness. Well, you have to resolve things. If they are just up there in the cosmic, just floating around, and you're just kind of like ignoring it and trying to get through and get by, push it down, you're not resolving anything. And if you don't resolve it, you can't close the door. So resolution is key. One thing I will say in closing about that one section is holding on to resentment. It's kind of like taking fire and putting it in your hand and holding on to it. Now, I know that sounds ludicrous, but what I'm saying about that is if you continue to hold the fire, what's it going to do? It's going to burn your hand. So you want to release it so that it's not afflicting any part of you, your body, your well-being. You want to get out of there. So that's why you want to release bitterness, and the only way to do that is to forgive. Number 3, begin the process of renewal. So you've come in, you've identified the issue, you've decided that you're going to forgive, and now you've got to figure out, now that you've forgiven, and see, I wanted to say one more thing about forgiveness. Because it's a decision, you may not feel any different initially. You just do it because it is psychologically and spiritually, emotionally, the right thing to do. It's the only way you're going to get free from that attack that you experienced. So number 3, you have to begin a process of renewal. Where do you go from here? How do you breathe better and differently? How do you go forward? How do you commit to the journey that you need to put yourself on? Silly example, but I've been really getting on my case just inwardly about exercising. And it's been so easy to put it off. I walk almost every day and I have this step goal, but I hadn't been exercising until last week. And I just had to decide to do it. But you know what? You can tell yourself you're going to do a thing, but if you don't put a plan in place, okay, it's going to be on this, and this day of the week. It's going to be this many times a week. And this day I'm going to work on the lower body, and this day the upper body, and this day aerobics. I mean, something like that. It could be whatever plan that works for you. One day it'll be breathing exercises. Heard that those are powerful and they can really clear your brain and help you in some other way. Here I am with YouTube in front of me, and every type of how-to there is out there. But if I don't put a plan together, guess what? I'll be a week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks from now still saying I need to exercise. I know. So when you begin your process of renewal, one of those steps needs to be having a plan. So I came up with this acronym to maybe help you if you need it to get past this. And it's called PUSH. And so I'll cover each one of those letters. P is for push past it. Push past the anger, push past the offense, push past the videotape that's playing in your head, and decide that you're going to go forward. Don't just stay stuck there playing that record over and over again. You understand that we are, like I said earlier, prone to misunderstandings, poor judgments, horrible childhood experiences, and things that make us do things that if we had all the wisdom we needed, we wouldn't do it. But because we're not there yet, we may do it. And if you can do that, if you can find that place to have grace for that person's behavior, then it may help you move forward. S, solder the chains that connect you to that pain. Break free from it all, but mentally first. if you don't take the time to pull back and away from that pain, if you don't cut it at the root and just say, hey, I gotta release myself. Yes, I need to release them, but in releasing them, I release myself. You will be stuck in that causal loop, and that's no fun. It's like a boomerang in Instagram. You don't want to get stuck playing the same thing over and over and over again because you never got over it. And finally, H, hold your head high for taking the high road, for halting the pain, for not refusing to let go. It will take a lot of work for you to do this, to push through. But boy, when you've done it, you will see the major difference in your life. Major. You will feel like you lost weight. And number 4, looking at the impact that your bitterness has had on others in your life. We can't worry about everybody and we can't please everybody, but we do love who we love. And so for family members, close friends, maybe even co-workers that you maybe work on a team with where you're interlocked on a pretty close basis to get projects done. If you're bitter, if you've been resentful, they've felt it. But if you don't believe me, what you could do is just identify who are the closer people in your life, people that really matter to you, that you know you matter to, and just go ask them. Say, I've been dealing with A, B, and C, and maybe you don't want to disclose what the issue is, but just ask them a simple question and say, have you ever experienced me as being bitter, difficult to deal with, like I'm harsh or hard-hearted? And if they know what you've dealt with, say you were married and you went through a bad divorce, then you can go and say, since my divorce, do I seem to be harsh or difficult, or have I been snapping? Please let me know. And just get the feedback. You might even want to go as far as putting together a slight, simple questionnaire. Maybe it's 3 questions, maybe it's 10 questions, I don't know. And you call them up and say, could you do me a favor? I have put together this, I'm doing some self-development work, and I just want to know how I'm coming across to you. So would you please do me a favor, love me enough to be honest, and just tell me what you think. And then have them give you the feedback. They can send it back to your email, they can mail it to you, they can hand it to you, or they can tell you verbally. It just depends on what their personality is, which one they're going to be willing to do. But in the cases of the people that are closest to you, they love you, they care about you, so they're going to do whatever they need to do to give you the feedback you're asking for, if you ask. But that's how you're going to get free. I'm telling you, life is a journey. It has ups and it has downs. How you come out depends on, first, your mind. When you decide to become enlightened and renew your mind and shift your thinking, oh my goodness, it makes such a huge difference. It'll enable you to flow in a positive light. It'll make all the difference in the world. I likened it to a Snapchat filter. We can put all kind of filters on that look really cute and fun. We can look ridiculous, or we can look silly, or we can look sexy. Snapchat can let us just play around. But I want to talk about, what if it was a human Snapchat? And it wasn't a place to hide behind. More importantly, it was a place for you to see life through better. So maybe if you were sad, you could put this human filter on that helped you see the tunnel and the guidance and direction toward happiness. And you could look through there and go, oh, that's how you do that. And you could filter your attitude and your mindset to happiness instead of sadness or sulking. I said that to say you can control your happiness. You can control a lot more of your destiny than you realize. We've been given an awesome authority in this life. And so many times we sit back and say, well, I sure hope we get the right president in here, or all those fires, I sure hope God stops the fires and things go out. But there are so many ways that you, being a human being, have the power to believe a thing and push through if you can see it. Like I said earlier, imagination is real. And if you can do a study on imagination and find out how you can really shift your reality from one place of misery and defeat and feelings of helplessness to a place of prosperity, a place of you can completely change your. If you don't believe me, let me just put it this way. There's a lady that I saw on YouTube about 2 or 3 years ago that somebody had put on their channel, and she had no arms. I think she had legs, but she had no arms, and she was born that way. And she had a daughter, and she would braid her hair with her feet because she figured out how to do it. And I'm just saying that to you to say, think of anybody that you're impressed with, any heroes in your life, and ways that, and maybe you don't know them, they don't know you, they're a celebrity of some type, but you've checked them out and saw how they fought through it and overcame. Well, that starts here. If you believe you can have a thing, if you don't give in and give up, you can do miraculous things. But you first got to believe you can, and you got to believe in yourself. So I hope this was helpful to you, because the worst thing, one of the worst things we can go through is a seemingly unresolvable hurt. And the longer you sit on it and just feel helpless and outdone, the deeper that wound can go. And eventually, like the tree that I mentioned in a previous video that goes deep into the ground, and sometimes it goes under the foundation of the house. It can eventually kind of uproot your foundation of your house. That tree can go so deep. That's how bitterness works. There's roots in bitterness that go deep and cause pain and hurt, and can cause you to come out of a very dark place that will cause you to be hopeless, helpless, resentful, and not bitter to just the person that hurt you, but bitter to people, because your heart becomes hard. Your heart becomes numb. It's at a place where it's like, nothing can attack me, because you've built all these layers and layers and layers of protection over it so that nobody could hurt it, when all you needed to do is let the birdie out, let it fly free. So I hope this helped you. If you have to watch it again, so be it. If you need to talk to a friend or get a counselor, do it. Do the work so that you can get all that you need. And I wish you the very best. May you have a wonderful, glorious 7 days. And before you leave, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. You'll see the bell. Click it. You'll get notified when I do uploads. And do a like and share with other people. Let them know about it. I wish you the best. You take care. Bye.